5 contradictions in the crucifixion narratives in the Bible. What time of day was Jesus crucified? Mark says at the 3rd hour. And it was the 3rd hour, and they crucified him. Mark chapter 15, verse 25 in the King James Version. John disagrees. According to John, Jesus was still alive at about the 6th hour with Pilate before the Jewish crowd, and the events which led to his sentence. And it was the preparation of the Passover, and about the 6th hour. John chapter 19, verse 14 in the King James Version. Moreover, Matthew and Luke also disagree with John. They both have Jesus already on the cross on the 6th hour. Now from the 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. Matthew chapter 27, verse 45 in the King James Version. And it was about the 6th hour, and there was a darkness over all the earth until the 9th hour. Luke chapter 23, verse 44 in the King James Version. So which is it? The 3rd hour or the 6th hour? If Jesus is God, and God died for mankind's sins, which in itself is a contradiction, then how is it that the same God inspired the Gospels with contradictory times of his own death? Some Christian theologians try to reconcile these differences by claiming John was using Roman time. This is easily dismissed by pointing out that, like the Jews, Romans reckon time from sunrise. Moreover, the Gospel of John was not written in Rome or for Romans, and there is no evidence internally that John was counting the hours any differently to the Jewish custom. For more information on the Roman system of reckoning time, please see Life and Leisure in Ancient Rome, page 1 by J. Ballston, and Handbook to Life in Ancient Rome by L. and R. Adkins. Who carried the cross to the place of crucifixion? The Synoptic Gospels, Mark, Matthew and Luke, say Simon of Cyrene. A certain man from Cyrene, Simon, the father of Alexander and Rufus, was passing by on his way in from the country, and they forced him to carry the cross. Mark chapter 15, verse 21 in the New International Version. As they were going out, they met a man from Cyrene named Simon, and they forced him to carry the cross. Matthew chapter 27, verse 32 in the New International Version. As the soldiers led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. Luke chapter 23, verse 26 in the New International Version. John disagrees with all three. John says Jesus carried his own cross all the way to the crucifixion place. Carrying his own cross, he went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. John chapter 19, verse 17, the New International Version. So which is it? Simon of Cyrene was forced to carry the cross for Jesus like Mark, Matthew and Luke claimed, or Jesus carried it all the way himself, as John claimed? The two versions cannot both be true, yet we are told they are all inspired of God. Most New Testament scholars agree that the Gospels of John, which came several decades after the Synoptic Gospels, embellished the narrative about Jesus. This is quite evident in John's Gospels. For example, all the three Synoptic Gospels, which came decades earlier than John, mention Jesus being baptized by John the Baptist. The baptism of Jesus by John the Baptist was a significant event for the Synoptic Gospels to record. However, it did not suit John's idea of Jesus, and probably questions were being raised in his milieu. Baptism was to cleanse a person of sins. John's theology required Jesus to be sinless, so he narrates the same encounter between Jesus and John the Baptist, but there is no mention of any baptism. Moreover, most of the I statements of Jesus are found in the Gospels of John. For example, I am the bread of life. John chapter 6, verse 35. I am the light of the world. John chapter 8, verse 12. I am the gate for the sheep. John chapter 10, verse 7. I am the resurrection and the life. John chapter 11, verse 25. I am the way, truth, and life. John chapter 14, verse 6. And most famously, I and the Father are one. John chapter 10, verse 30. And before Abraham was, I am. John chapter 8, verse 58. These I am statements are the main reason most Christians eager to prove the divinity of Jesus almost always and often instinctively go to the Gospels of John than any other gospel. It is worth mentioning that the verses, when examined, do not show the divinity of Jesus. In John's Christology and theology, Jesus is the God of Israel who came to die for mankind. So John could not have Jesus weak and reluctant to die. So he had Jesus picking his own cross and walking with it all the way to Golgotha, where he was to be crucified. However, this then directly contradicted the earlier gospel accounts. So which version is correct, and which one is not inspired by God? Was Jesus the first person to rise from the dead? The book of Acts says, yes, that the Messiah would suffer and, as the first to rise from the dead, would bring the message of light to his own people and to the Gentiles. Acts chapter 26, verse 23 in the New International Version. However, Mark, Matthew, Luke, John, and the Old Testament disagree. Other resurrections appear before Jesus's in the Gospels mention. Jairus' daughter, Mark chapter 5, verses 22 to 24, and verses 35 to 43. Jairus' daughter, Matthew chapter 9, verses 18 to 26. The widow's son, Luke chapter 7, verses 12 to 15. Lazarus, John chapter 11, verses 43 and 44. The Old Testament also tells of Elisha raising a child from death. 2 Kings, chapter 4, verses 32 to 35. So is the book of Acts correct, and the 4 New Testament Gospels and the book of 2 Kings from the Old Testament wrong, or vice versa? Both versions cannot be true. What were Jesus's last words on the cross? This depends on the gospel you read. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Mark chapter 15 verse 34, and Matthew chapter 27 verse 46. Father, into thy hand I commit my spirit. Luke chapter 23, verse 46. It is finished. John chapter 19, verse 30. So which gospel is narrating Jesus's last words accurately? How can there be differences in this important detail? How many disciples were present when Jesus first met them after the resurrection? The full group, all 11. According to Matthew chapter 28, verses 16 and 17, and Luke chapter 24, verse 33. However, both Matthew and Luke give 2 different meeting places. Remember, Judas the betrayer was dead. There were only 10 of them, according to John chapter 20, verse 24. John has Thomas missing only to have him appear 8 days later, in order to have him exclaim, "My Lord and my God." John chapter 20, verse 28. This story only appears in John. Some Christians dismiss these contradictions and differences in narrations, pointing out that they all narrate Jesus' death and resurrection, and that's what is important to them. This type of attitude leads to blind following. It also means they pick and choose their own religion from the book, maneuvering around problem verses. As an example, when the violent God with the violent verses in the Old Testament is pointed out, sometimes before you could even finish your point, you hear Old Testament shouted back at you. They are eager to point out that they follow the New Testament and Jesus, who is love. You then have to remind them that as they believe Jesus is God, then they have to accept the God of the Old Testament is Jesus. Moreover, the 10 Commandments, prophecies about Jesus, etc., are all in the Old Testament. The most important question is, what criteria do you use to ascertain which verse or verses are true, when there are differences and contradictions, and you are told they are all inspired by God? Don't just accept what you are told or leave your salvation in the hands of someone else. Research for yourself. Your afterlife could depend on it.